Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we're doing a box office breakdown for this past weekend, which saw John Wick Chapter 4 open to a massive $73 million domestic opening, which, hey, Deadline, congratulations, you finally actually got a headline correct with a franchise record, because guess what? They continue to ignore inflation. They continue to ignore the fact that there are differences between these release dates, because guess what? The value of the dollar today is not the same as the value of the dollar back then, and that's why inflation is one of the most fair ways of comparison, including also the metric of using the average, the rough estimate for ticket sales too. And in both categories, this is the largest opening domestic weekend for the film. Was not able to do the full breakdown of the international worldwide numbers, but I would not be surprised if it was around the same amount as well. So we'll go ahead and talk about John Wick Chapter 4, but also we're going to talk about one of the really, it couldn't happen to a better franchise, couldn't happen to a worse franchise, or to a worse universe, I would argue, as far as like how it's been portrayed in film, and that's the DCEU and Shazam 2 dropping 68% in its second weekend of release. We thought Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania's 70% drop was bad, and it was. Well, Shazam also had a very bad drop at 68%. This film not likely going to cross $200 million internationally, which, if you just think about it for a moment, is not a good state that Warner Brothers wants to be in, especially as they prepare for one of the most expensive films that they have ever done in the Flash film, based on the fact that it was already a very expensive film. There's been extensive reshoots. I'll be very intrigued by what number they put out as far as their actual production budget, because I'm sure that will be adjusted, as most films that have massive reshoots tend to adjust those numbers. I'm looking at Solo: Star Wars Story. Initially it had a production budget of like 150 to 200 million, and then it ended up coming in well over $200 million. And so we'll have to wait, of course, on that. But things not looking good for Shazam whatsoever. But we're going to talk about these films and other films as well, and the current state of the box office. Before we get any further, though, please make sure you smash that like button, that fire button, Aussie, and smash the rumble button as well. Also, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with the bell notification turned on, way that you know every video live stream goes live on the channel. I don't know why. I always stumble upon that, but I do try to speak as quickly as I possibly can. Blessed Passion Sunday, by the way, to everyone out there. Next week is Palm Sunday, and then after that is Easter Sunday. Crazy to think Lent is almost over. But as it says here from the headline and Deadline, $73 million opening, a franchise record, and for once, Deadline is actually correct. As it says here, John Wick Chapter 4 shows up for $25.8 million, a similar Friday preview to Saturday trajectory of minus 12%, as did John Wick 3. That makes for a revised franchise and Lionsgate pandemic record opening of 73.5. Love mentioning the pandemic. Worldwide start is also a franchise best, as we always knew it would be, with $137.5 million. The Keanu Reeves movie debuted at number 1 in each of the 71 markets where the pick opened this weekend. But again, I will try to point out the fact that they are saying that without actually doing any due diligence whatsoever of actually giving, fair comparisons between the movies themselves. But hey, guess what? Don't worry. I was able to do that for you, Deadline. And let's go ahead and dive into that chart right now. So, as you can see, I've mentioned this chart previously, and I've used it on other videos, but for John Wick Chapter 1, when you adjust the opening weekend for inflation, it was $18.3 million in today's dollars terms, and then it was able to double its audience with John Wick Chapter 2 to $37 million, able to double its audience again with John Wick Chapter 3 to $66.4, and even though they were not able to, so this is something that I did say, could be a early sign of again, things still going well. I was never, in my mind, thought John Wick Chapter 4 was going to be in a financial trouble, but it is still something to point out nonetheless that the numbers did not double between John Wick Chapter 3 and John Wick Chapter 4, and that's showing us that the audience for this film is pretty much set. So it's really not a bad bit of news for John Wick Chapter 4 after especially having seen it, and it's amazing. Check out my review on the channel if you have not done so already, but it does, I think, also maybe give a bit of a concept as to what Hollywood does not quite understand, or maybe needs to start understanding, which is that every franchise has its limits. Every franchise will be able to only grow its audience so much. John Wick, has a franchise has been able to grow its audience incredibly well from every subsequent film. The films overall have just been able to add on more and more money to their overall box office, showing, hey, people may not have seen the first film, but guess what? A lot of people saw it on DVD, a lot of people saw it on Blu-ray, on streaming services, fell in love with it, boom, we're ready to show up for Chapter 2. Same thing happened with Chapter 2, with Chapter 3, and now we're seeing, again, there was an increase, so we also still saw more people seeing this movie than probably had seen even, all the other films on their opening weekend, as the numbers indicate, but also new people likely also. We won't know that for sure, though, until we get the official box office, end result when John Wick 4 is out of theaters, because obviously a lot of people could show up opening weekend, and then you see massive drop-offs second weekend, or just progressively over time, and then ultimately you have a film coming in underneath where some of the other films ended up. I don't think that's going to happen here, though, based off of the numbers that we are seeing. As you can see, it still sold about almost 1 million more tickets than John Wick Chapter 3, and then compared to the overall numbers brought in, again, it definitely easily was able to take its crown and officially take its crown as being the highest domestic opening of the franchise. So, hey, kudos to John Wick. It is a great film to be able to actually pull that off. Talking about the numbers at the weekend itself, we'll go ahead and update this chart just in case anything has updated. Coming in the number one spot, it's a no surprise, it's John Wick Chapter 4, $73.5 million, $19,000 per screen. A very good per theater ratio there. Shazam 2, Fear of the Gods, on the other hand, not nearly... not in the same boat whatsoever. Warner Brothers is just in so much trouble right now. It is quite insane. This movie is projected to lose somewhere between $50 and $100 million when everything is said and done, and that's based on more conservative estimates. So a 68% drop to $9.7 million brings its total domestic to $46 million. Yeah, you heard that right. Its total domestic to $46 million. John Wick has already made more than that easily. That is, again, how abysmal, how bad Shazam is doing right now at the box office. And the film really isn't so bad as to lose that kind of money. I've seen much worse films than Shazam 2. That being said, it's not a good film, and it's definitely not a great film, and so it makes complete sense to me why people are just not going to see this movie. And when you add to that the fact that they have brought in someone like James Gunn, and that he has gone out of his way to say really stupid things like, hey, yeah, Henry Cavill, he's gone, this person's gone, etc. Why would anyone actually want to show up to these movies to support them when they know, why would I want to invest the time and money when I know already the plan going forward, or at the very least, who is not in the plan going forward? And we're seeing this ultimately lead to some massive financial losses for Warner Brothers. So they'll have to actually get to the point of having a James Gunn movie under his, again, leadership as head of the DCEU. They'll actually have to get there and survive to that point first before we can even say for any shadow of a doubt, that it's going to be any benefit whatsoever. I just don't see how it can at this point in time. Even with films like Flash that to come out, yeah, Michael Keaton Batman might bring some people out to the theater, but I would not be surprised if you saw very similar, not necessarily similar numbers, but a similar sentiment to a higher degree, right? Having just more money coming in opening weekend for The Flash. But we'll talk about that when it actually gets released. Coming in at number 3 this weekend, though, is Scream 6 with $8.4 million, dropping 52% in its third week. This film's pretty much made the vast majority of what it's going to make at this point in time. But hey, it's adding on to its profits, so kudos to them. Creed 3, even in the midst, of course, all of the controversy, which just broke a couple days, I think yesterday, like last couple days, over one of the stars of the film being arrested for, let's just say, abuse. We will... of course, see if that has any long-term impacts on it. That all being said, though, the film Creed 3 is still performing very well. 46% drop in its fourth week of release. Film has still made $140 million domestically and is still well over almost $250 million internationally, so doing very well. Coming in at number 5 is 65, dropping 44% in its third week of release. And as you can see, starting to bleed some theaters here, and let's just say not going to be a win for Sony. And I personally was not a big fan of the film, so I'm not all that surprised to see this film end up losing money in the long run. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania also continues to be a massive disappointment for Disney. And again, more conservative estimates have this film losing somewhere around $20 million. However, I would not be surprised if the number is a little bit higher than that. And again, take that for what it is worth. Coming in the number 7 spot is Cocaine Bear, which actually has finally broken even, was able to add some money over the last week or two, and so it finally has able to make its money back. Jesus Revolution continuing to add to its money as well, coming in the number 8 spot with $2 million. Champions at the number 9 spot, still no budget, so I can't say much about whether that's good or not. And then coming in at number 10, still in the top 10, is, after even 15 weeks of release, is Avatar: The Way of Water with $1.4 million. This film has reached another milestone, crossing $2.3 billion, and that's going to be the last major milestone that it is going to pass at this point in time. But hey, it has the international crown. Can't beat Top Gun Maverick's domestic crown, though. And I will continue to run with that because Avatar 2 sucks. Top Gun Maverick is awesome. John Wick Chapter 4, speaking of awesome, is, again, worldwide $137.5 million. So just very, very nice box office for this film right now. Costs about $100 million to make, and so it's going to take about a week or two for this film to be able to make its money back. But right now, based off of the the reactions that everyone's giving for this film, the very positive reactions, the chances of this film not making its money back are pretty much slim to none. I suspect to have a very small drop off, especially compared to other $100 million films next weekend, even with more competition set to come out over the next couple of weeks. Shazam! Fear the Gods is not going to have the same kind of luck. As you can see, only at $102.4 million worldwide, meaning this film won't cross $200 million when everything is said and done based off of how it is pacing. And yeah, not a good thing. It's sad to happen to Zachary Levi like that, because I like him overall as an actor. He seems like a very positive personality. He said some things that I've generally agreed with, but ultimately that doesn't change the fact the film is just not all that good. Creed 3 coming at $245.8 million, also a film that just isn't all that good, but hey, was able to get enough people to show up to it for it to be able to make some profits, which is a good thing. 65, not able to do the same. And again, some people have said this film is good. I am not one of those persons. And so it doesn't surprise me for this film to not be making really any money at this point in time, and not likely in the future. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, very similar boat as some of the other films I've mentioned, but won't make it to $500 million, which is the more conservative break-even point I have for the movie. And let's just say, not going to happen. Cocaine Bear 2023, $81.7 million. So impressive numbers there. Jesus Revolution only really getting domestic numbers, $49 million there. Champions at $15.1 million. Avatar Way of Water at $2.3 billion. Again, very impressive numbers there. Puss in Boots at $475. It's slowed down enough to where $500 million is probably off the table for this movie, but hey, stranger things have happened. And then Scream 6 is still hanging around as well with $139.2 million. Going ahead and looking at the actual box office breakdown. Again, kudos to John Wick Chapter 4 for being able to, actually make a franchise record there. But looking at the numbers, as you can see, $137.5 million means I'm projecting the film right now is at around $67.4 million loss at this point in time. Its break even is $250 though, and I would not be surprised to see this film get to that either by this coming weekend or at least by Easter weekend. This film is going to make its money and is going to end up being a very successful film based on the fact that it had a much stronger than expected opening weekend. Its word of mouth has been crazy good. And let's just say it's going to continue to sell very well because of those things. Can't be said the same thing cannot be said for Shazam 2 though. At $102.4 million is currently at $126 million in the red, and with that metric in, we can now project that the film will make somewhere between $146 and $204 worldwide when everything is said and done. So I'm suspecting this film will not get even close to crossing $200 million internationally, which is abysmal based off of its $125 million production budget though, and a conservative, again, based off of what many standards people use today. I still think this is the most common standard, but hey, we all have our differences there. Of $312.5 million being the break even, that means the film is going to lose somewhere between $99 and $64 million when everything is said and done. And again, that's all based off the fact that the studios don't get 100% of the ticket receipts, and also you take into account how much they spent, the marketing costs, etc. Then of course the split between theater and studio. So you're still looking at this film being probably close to $100 million of a loss when everything is said and done, and it's again abysmal to say the very least. Scream 6 is very much on pace to be able to match the projections that I had early on. Let me go ahead and actually do these percentages live while everyone is still here watching, just to show you where it compares to its first 2 weeks. So right now, 65, for instance, is 79%. So it made 79% of its total right now in the first couple of weeks of its release. And of course, with these new numbers for Shazam, that's why that number's at 100. If anyone's ever wondered what those numbers mean, just means compared to the first 2 weeks, where are the actual, basically where is it charting? And you can actually use this in conjunction with the numbers that I give to see how well it did historically and how well it did even comparatively to the actual chart. But Scream 6 is doing very well with 31 million in the black. 65, again, 38 million in the red, and I was projecting this film to at least lose 20 million, and I'm still thinking that's probably going to end up happening. Can't say anything about Champions with no production budget. Unfortunately, Operation Fortune, not really doing that well at all, though it is available for pre-sale, and it's going to be available actually on physical media. It's going to be released on physical media in the beginning of April, so just within about a week or two. So I'm very excited for that. was able to buy a couple extra copies, so hopefully I'll be able to have those featured in giveaways because I think it is one of the best films of the year so far. Creed 3 at $35 million in the black at this point in time. Again, 73% compared to its first 2 weeks, so it's still doing pretty well in this case, but definitely will not be a chart topper by any means. Cocaine Bear, $81 million, means the film has made about $1 million back in profit, so kudos to them. Jesus Revolution, $6.9 million in profit. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, $21 million in the red, and not likely going to make that money back anytime soon. And again, really not ever. And then as far as the other films that have been updated, Puss in Boots at $157 million worldwide. Just compared to its first 2 weeks, again, if you want to talk about chart breaking, if you want to talk about one of the best performing films compared to the first 2 weeks this year, some of the best legs on a movie, Puss in Boots has some of the best legs ever. I mean, again, the first 2 weeks only account for 27% of its entire box office. Avatar is definitely also, and again, I mentioned that previous as a chart breaker, 38% of its first 2 weeks, or rather, first 2 weeks is only 38% of its entire box office, so also has done very well. But I will definitely say that overall, we could argue that Puss in Boots is definitely the much more impressive as far as compared to its actual budget, especially when the budget of Avatar Way of Water is still very much in question, since the filmmaker himself back in the day had said, yeah, the film needs to make $1.5 to $2 billion to break even, and how much money did it actually make in the long run? So I'm sure that's going to, trigger some people. But what are y'all's thoughts about this? Have you seen John Wick Chapter 4? Are you excited that it's doing well at the box office? Or are you surprised to see it doing as well as it is? What are your thoughts about that? Also, thoughts about Shazam 2 being essentially a guaranteed flop. And again, this is what happens, Warner Brothers, when you continue to make and consistently make just really, really bad movies in general. And this has been true really from almost the dawn of the DCEU. Don't get me wrong. I think that, Man of Steel is a C-level movie. I think that the first Shazam film is like a B- movie. But other than that, you have, again, a bunch of other C-level to D-level to even F-level, like Wonder Woman 1984 movies. And ultimately, you're going to lose your audience very, very quickly. As John Wick shows, you can grow your audience to quite a large degree, even doubling your audience. But ultimately, it does have its limits, and over time, you're going to get to the point where I think DC is kind of seeing this at this point, that you're going to not have enough audiences to justify your own existence. So what are your thoughts about this? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, slap that fire button, Aussie, and smash the rumble button. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day, a blessed Passion Sunday, and a blessed Passion Tide as well. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my March Patreon, Subscribe Star, and local members at the Keeper of the Bifrost level and above. Starting off with Father Luca Illich, Garrett Searles, Chris from the 80s, who you can check out over his YouTube channel by the same name, Jaimir Irie Hymason, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Orange at Reviews, you can check out over at his YouTube channel, Laura, the Modern Major General Story, Rosetta Allen, who you can check out at her YouTube channel, Eagle Writer, Miss Martin Muses, and you can check her out at her YouTube channel by the same name also. To my Subscribe Star members, Matt317, you can check out over at his Twitch channel, Matt317, Fast Reaction, The R, Mr. Roy, J-Rod, the Beer Guru, and ZK Man, who you can find out over at xtheboundaries.co. And lastly, to my locals members, Miss Minnesota Hockey Fan, How About a Hockey Player, J.H. Schwalbach, Brett D90, and the amazing lawyer, Robert Barnes. Thank you all very much for supporting me at the Patreon level, Subscribe Star level, and locals level of Keeper the Bifrost and above. If you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and every video, make sure to check out the top link in the video description to find out more ways that you can support the channel, including ways to get access to a podcast and also ways to get access to giveaways that I do on the channel, and also, of course, to my coveted Chosen of Valhalla level as well. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.